Lonely Monk Productions. I don't know if y'all have heard Tree by Layla McCalla yet, but yo!
That's my Jawn!
Hey, yo, displace the guilt and embrace the pleasure. You're tasting things that don't need to be measured. What's good, friends and family, neighbors near and far? Welcome to an all-new episode of the Yo, That's My Jawn podcast. The podcast, website, brand, movement, way of life dedicated to the embrace and championing of your passions. I am your host, Nate Runkle, a.k.a. Johnny Thunder, a.k.a. Nate 3.0, back at it again with yet another episode of the podcast. As always, I hope this podcast finds you all in good health and in good spirits. On today's episode, I am joined by Carsie Blanton for a chat about her new album, After the Revolution, the state of the music business, and more. And that's coming up in a minute here. But first, hello, my friends. Hope you all had a fine week since last we spoke. Did you get out this weekend for Record Store Day? Well, we got out, and I was able to pick up a few things that were on my pull list. Of course, I picked up the 30th anniversary release of the homie G Love's debut record. That had to come home with me. And I was super excited to nab a copy of the Richard O'Brien demos for the Music to Rocky Horror Show. I have always been a fan of that musical and that film, and I harbor a lifelong dream to someday play Brad Majors in a production of it. I'm just putting that energy out there now. The wife was able to get the only thing she was actively hunting for, which was the Slater-Kinney 7-inch, and we also grabbed the Nat King Cole Live at the Blue Note Chicago off the recommendation of last week's guest Paul Myers. And having listened to a bit of it tonight over dinner, I am so glad we did because it sounds incredible. I left behind a bunch of stuff that I want and definitely will have to circle back for those and maybe hit a few other stores to see if I can find some of the things they were out of, like the Ramones demos drop. I'm really hoping to find that one somewhere. But big shouts out to Siren Records in Doylestown, who runs an incredible Record Store Day event every single time. And shouts out to the School of Rock students who were performing out front of Siren to entertain us all as we waited in line. Guys, them kids truly rock. Speaking of rocking, I'm on the radio again tonight from 5 to 8 p.m. as I am every Monday on Why Not Radio. So tune in and hang out with me. And there should be an all-new episode of the Too Old, Too New Music Discovery podcast with me and Bruce Warren of WXPN dropping on Wednesday. And spoilers, we might be taking a small visit to the Tortured Poets Department. You have been warned. And hopefully we'll have episode 7 of Oops All Bards out for you as well. You know, a whole bunch of content for you. Isn't that what it's all about? Content? Well, best way to stay on top of the content is to visit www.yothat'smyjawn.com. That's the link tree that will take you to all of the good stuff. The website with the previous episodes of this podcast. We got links to other podcasts that I produce, the other podcasts I've guested on, merchandise, the mailing list, the socials. It's like Grand Central Nathan over there. You see what I did? So yeah, visit www.yothat'smyjawn.com and check all that out. All right, showtime. My guest today is a singer, songwriter, organizer, and activist who Fresh Air has called, quote, one of those hard-headed, open-hearted protesters who can make revolution sound desirable to your body, even if your mind wants to resist it, end quote. Her latest album, After the Revolution, is a beautiful 12-song journey in finding hope and optimism in our dark world. Folks, it is my honor to welcome to the show, Carsie Blanton. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm joined today by the great Carsie Blanton. Carsie, thank you for joining me on Yo, That's My Jawn.
Oh, Nate, happy to be here.
So the new album, After the Revolution, has been on a constant play since the full thing dropped yesterday. Well, that'll be in the past. I forgot. These things air in the future. But anyway, for us, it just released yesterday. And I'm completely obsessed, as I have been, as like singles have been coming out and stuff like that. But I have to warn you. I have to warn you. At some point, I'm going to send to you, I kind of wrote a freestyle remix to Ain't We Got Fun Okay. So
Oh,
like,
good.
because I was like driving in my
That's
car
awesome.
and I was just in my, I was feeling the vibes and I just started kind
Oh,
of freestyling. So I'm going to write it out and then I'm going to
that
send it
sounds
to you.
great. I'll take it. I'm glad you warned me because I have to like prepare emotionally for how
Yes.
great this is about to be.
Well, let's not go
I
that
can't
far.
wait.
But the other thing that I want to mention, we'll talk way much more about the album later, but one of the other things I want to mention is that our mutual pal played a part on this, Brittany Ann Trumbell, who
Oh yeah.
we're Discord pals. We're in a
Oh
working
nice.
musician kind of
Oh
Discord,
yeah,
and
she was just talking to me about that Philly musicians Discord. That's
yeah,
awesome.
it's super cool. But I was super excited to hear the song and hear you on it and all that. Like it's just it's such a wonderful album. I'm so happy for you
Oh,
guys.
thank you. Yes, I love that song Caroline that Brittany wrote. She played it for me in Germantown at our mutual bass player Joe Plowman's house. And I like immediately started crying the moment she played me the first verse. And I was like, can I cover that song? So she only released it a couple months ago. It's like a pretty new song, and I
Yeah,
released it yesterday. But yeah, I'm obsessed with that song
it's
as well.
unbelievable. Well, let's jump in the Wayback Machine and kind of get this thing started how I always start them. Tell everybody a little bit about yourself, where you grew up.
So I grew up in Central Virginia in the Shenandoah Valley, in a town called Luray, and had a weird, crazy childhood. I grew up in kind of a personal growth cult in the early 90s, and then yada yada yada. I got into music. I moved to the West Coast, and then I've lived like all over. I lived in New Orleans for a while, lived in Oregon for a while, lived in San Francisco for a while, landed in Philly. Uh, I've lived in Philly like collectively for 10 or 12 years. I keep moving away and coming back, so it's kind of hard to count. But now I'm over in Jersey, so not far.
Okay, okay. When you were younger, like what kind of music was playing around? Like what were you kind of drawn to?
Well, my parents are both big music heads, mostly singer-songwriter, like folk Americana stuff. So John Prine was the big hit in my family. And then, Dylan, Paul Simon, Joni Mitchell, that whole crew. But my grandpa, who grew up in Chicago, was really into jazz. And I saw the Ken Burns jazz documentary when I was, I believe, 13. And my mom told my grandpa that I really liked it, and he sent me this huge stack of jazz CDs for my 13th birthday. And then I got really into jazz. So those are sort of my two early loves, and then I've kind of spread out from there over
I
the years.
It's one of my favorite things because like almost I would say 98% of the people when they answer that, everything they say really informs and is like, "Oh, that's your sound." And it's never like it's never like one thing. It's never like, "Oh, you're a singer." Everything was singer song. It's always like some kind of awesome melting pot of a collection of
Yeah.
music that makes the best music, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I'm a pretty wide listener now. So started out with those two threads and then kind of like just, crawled all around into all the different little pockets of music. So I still listen to a lot of jazz. But I also love like R&B and soul and Motown. And then I did, as I aged a little, in my mid-teens, I got into the punk scene because we lived outside of DC. So those influences crept in a little later.
Yeah. When did you start playing?
So I played piano as a kid, but didn't love it. And then 13, 14, I started playing guitar and trying to write songs around the same time. And I kind of immediately started gigging. Like I think my first gig was also in Virginia in this little cafe called the Blue Moon Cafe. And I believe I was 14. And I remember like I had played open mics, but that was the first gig I got paid for, and they wrote me a check, and I didn't have a bank account. I was like,
Oh no.
"Whoa, $50!" So I had to like sign it over to my mom.
That's great.
Yeah,
It's sad that those payouts haven't really grown, have they? Like
they sure haven't.
yeah,
50 bucks is still the going rate, I think, for a cafe gig.
yeah, right. It's wild. The early stuff you were writing, does any of it exist in any format out there, or have we kind of buried that?
I mean, like I could probably dig it up if I tried really hard. I don't think it's on the internet. my
Yeah.
first record that I like burned onto a CD, you know?
Yeah, that's like one of my pet interests is I'm always like prodding people whenever I hear that like they were writing and recording super young. I'm like, put it up on
Yeah.
Bandcamp, I'll pay for it. Like, let's go. Like, I want to
I'm
hear it.
gonna give it another decade, then it'll be
Okay,
old enough that I'll be like, oh, go ahead, you can have it.
that's right.
Internet, strangers of the world.
Yes, have at it.
Yeah.
So you started like playing out at that time. Like, was there was did you take to it naturally? Like, was the stage like this is it? I know I'm here.
Yeah, basically. It's funny because I always loved performing and I always did perform, but I didn't plan to do it for a job until a good bit later. I think I was like 21 or 22 when I decided to take a crack at professional music. But I'd already been gigging at that point for like 8 years or something.
Right.
But I always have felt pretty comfortable on stage. Like I like the adrenaline rush. I get stage fright, or I used to, but it's kind of fun to me. I like the thrill.
Yeah.
So, and then when I went on tour, I think 16 the first time I went on tour. I was a backup singer in a funk band from Eugene, Oregon. That was when I moved away from home. So I was out there living in this like kind of punk rock music house. And me and my friend Nicole, who is the character in Ain't We Got Fun. That's about me and my good friend being teenagers together. Yeah, we hitchhiked from Eugene to Portland. We got picked up by a guy who had a funk band, and we became his backup singers. Then we all went on tour, like a
That's
few months later.
amazing. What was the name of that band?
It was called the Champagne Syndicate.
That's that's choice. I like that a lot.
I'm still friends with most of the people from that band. But we did like a real dirtbag, like month-long tour where we had like 8 gigs over a month, and they were like thousands of miles apart. Like we drove from Oregon to Denver and then all the way to LA and back basically for like a few $100 gigs. But it was really fun, and I think that's kind of when I was like, there's something about this that is going to be hard to stay away from, and it has been.
Yeah. Yeah. So, around 21, you said you started to decide to like kick it. Like, can you remember like what the catalyst, like what it was that made you go, I got this, like, this is it. Like,
Well, so I moved out to the West Coast when I was 16, pretty quickly got into like a kind of long-term live-in relationship. And then we broke up when I was 20. And when we broke up, or 21, I think, when we broke up, I was like, it was a bad enough breakup that I was like, I have to move back across the country and like completely wipe the slate clean and start over. And so I moved to Philly at that point because my mom was living in Philly. She had split up with my dad, remarried a guy from Philly. So I moved to Philly at 21 and was like, I'm going to try music as a career for like 1 year. And if at the end of the year I'm not, selling out nice venues and on a record label, then I'll just stop. And neither one of those things happened. And then I also didn't stop because it was too much fun.
yeah, yeah, totally.
And here I
When
am.
when you came out to Philly, like where were you? Did you have like a spot you were frequent at out here, or?
Well, so when I first moved there, I moved in with my mom in Phoenixville, actually. So I was in the suburbs for about 6 months or so, and I worked at Steel City Coffee as a
Oh, okay.
barista. And played there at their open mic and stuff. And then moved to the Northern Liberties first with a bunch of roommates, and then my husband and I, still my husband actually, moved to Fairmount, like our
Okay.
museum neighborhood, and then we moved to South Philly, 11th and Warnock,
Yes.
and from there to New Orleans. So that was my whole like Philly career, really.
Okay. Okay. And so you were playing Steel City in Philly. Like what were you doing open mics at that, or were you higher than that at that point? Or
I was doing open mics when I first moved out here.
okay.
But then I also played the Milk Boy open mic at the old Milk Boy in Ardmore that was a coffee shop.
Yeah.
And I met a guy, my manager there, he was my first manager, saw me. Actually, somebody brought him to the open mic. So Bill Ibe is his name. He's kind of like a old school Philly manager guy, like has been around for a while. Used to work with Amos Lee. He was working with Amos Lee at the time. And I was like, oh my God, that was the biggest thing you could be in Philly at that point, like
Yeah.
2006. That was the peak. not the peak to say that oh, it's all downhill from there, but you know what I mean. He had made a really big splash with that first record.
Yeah.
So yeah, then I started working with Bill, and that was kind of like my entry into the world of the biz.
Okay, because see, like I always like to because that time period is the small beginning of the window of time that I tried my hand at a music career, and
Oh yeah,
it turned into a podcast career. So I mean, like, but anyway, but so I
not
always
that
like.
not
Mhm.
dissimilar, really. I mean, there's a lot of
For
similarities.
there really is. I mean, like, I can't tell you how many musicians I've bonded with over Spotify woes.
Yeah.
Like, but I always like to kind of know because, like, essentially what I'm doing in the back of my head was, I wonder if we ever played the same open mic night at the same
Probably.
night. Probably, right? Because I
At
used to
like,
host one.
oh really?
Yeah, at there, and it was a very small window of time, maybe like a year or so, at the Kildares in Head House Square on South Street, like right in South Street.
I don't
Um,
remember that one.
but it wasn't very successful. It was mostly me and my buddy playing for 4 hours, and like occasionally somebody else would show up, and we would be like, please play a
Yeah.
lot." Like, do you have more songs? Because you're more than
Yeah,
welcome
because
to.
you can play them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember like playing at Grape Street and like the Star Bar, is that what it was called? The one in Fairmount that had an
Oh
open
yeah,
mic for
North
a
Star.
while? North Star Bar, that's right.
Yeah, yeah, I miss
Um,
that place,
oh
and now I
yeah.
miss the Grape Street. I don't know if you heard
Yeah.
about that. Like, that's a
Yeah.
bummer.
And the
Um,
Boot and Saddle, which was the most recent like place I
yeah.
would play my own shows as of a few
Yeah.
years
Well,
before the pandemic, I
they're
guess.
now Solar Myth. And I
Okay.
don't know if you've seen a show there or not, but they've pretty much kind of pivoted to more of like a jazz thing, and
Oh, cool.
it's really dope.
Oh,
It's
that's
really
awesome.
awesome.
I would
So
love to go
like,
see jazz there. It's a nice room. It's like
yes,
it's a cozy place.
I feel like that's like my perfect size. Like, that's the kind of thing I
Yeah.
enjoy because, like, even if you're not up front, you're still like in a good position. And unless it's too crowded, which I've gotten weird with post pandemic, which
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
never anything on my mind. And now I'm like, why are all these people so close to me? Um,
Why are you breathing on me?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I hear a sniffle and I'm like, we're out. Let's leave. Like, it's not worth it.
No
No, but
thanks. Yeah.
but so around that time you do the first like actual album, right?
Yeah. Well, so I actually made an album when I was 19. So I was living on the West Coast, but I made it with some people I knew from my hometown in Virginia. But it was sort of like it was a good crack at it, but I hadn't quite figured out, how to do it yet. I mean, it's still figuring it out, but yeah, then after I moved to Philly, I made a record called Bowie with Pete Donnelly, produced it.
Yes.
And that was kind of like the first record that was like, oh, like it was kind of fun to make.
Yeah.
You know.
Do you enjoy studio work or
Oh, I love it. I
yeah.
love it. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I love all the parts of it in different ways. I think probably writing, like songwriting is my favorite. Uh, and then studio work and then touring. Although I like touring too.
Yeah.
I think I need to tour a little less hard and I would like it more.
Yeah, I mean, you put work in, like you do numbers. Like, I'm always amazed at the people who successfully can tour like that.
Yeah.
Like doing it is one thing, but like doing it successfully is absolutely like brilliant and well deserved, man. Like,
Oh,
I mean, like you put the work in and
oh,
it's there. Like, that's one of the things that like I really enjoy about you is like I feel like you're operating right now at like a peak where you're just like, I got that, like and it's just absolutely incredible to watch, man. Like,
oh, thank you. I do feel like, so I've been touring for like 16, 17 years now, like with my own music as an original artist. And I feel like I kind of, coming out of the pandemic is when I kind of started to do it in a way that didn't just hemorrhage money because I've been hemorrhaging money for the first 15 years and making a tiny bit of money on the road for the last 2 years. So yeah, it's a really hard thing to figure out how to do without just losing money. I wrote an article, I don't know if you would have come across it, for The Nation like a year ago about that, where I admit that I have $200,000 worth of debt. And that is mostly from touring. but it's like a look taking on another 10 grand every year or two because of some tour that didn't go the way it was supposed to go. And same with albums. Like I do a crowd fund, make an album, but oops, it costs 10 grand more than we thought. And it's like every time for 15 years, it really adds up. But that's all to say that coming out of the pandemic, we kind of like made some decisions as a band, and I made some decisions as a CEO, as a business person that that have seemed to be working way better.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you mentioned that Nation article because like that's one of the things that like I've been trying to do anything I can do to kind of shine a light on, which is the fact that like the financial nature of music just doesn't exist. Like it's
Yeah.
not there. And it breaks my heart because like I think about like just some of the excess of money in the industry, like, you know, even now, like I'm not even going to pretend like it's any different, but like,
Yeah.
20 years ago, like just gross amounts of money when like, in sync and all of those, all those albums, not even just them, like Coldplay and like stuff like that, like things that were selling like, multi-platinum,
Yeah.
and just because of all right, here we go. I'm about to red string everybody. Sit back. But like mostly because like big box stores like Best Buy buying up things as loss leaders, like
Yeah.
things you just kind of leave at the register. And
Yeah.
like it wasn't sustainable. And I knew like as it was happening, I'm like, when this blows up, it's going to take everybody with.
And it
And
did.
then it did. and, and so like when I see someone like you, like somebody independent who can self-sustain, and you're like you say in that article, like you are by no means now in a stratosphere of wealth, right?
No.
But you're able to sustain a career that supports your creativity. Well,
Yeah.
then I want to shine a light on that because I want more people to figure out like what they can do. And I
Yeah.
think it's one of the good things that came out of the pandemic. And
I
that
think so
is that
too.
I think that people like appreciate the people they love more now.
Mm.
And I
Yeah.
think we have like a better relationship with our fans. And
Yeah.
now I will take the red string down.
Yeah, do you remember right at the beginning of the pandemic there was a meme going around that said, I figured out how much money I lost from all the gigs that got canceled, and it turns out I made $67.
Yeah, it's so true. Like it's
Yeah,
gross, but
it's
like
really true. Actually, 2020 was my first year that I didn't claim a loss on my business taxes.
really,
Yeah, because I wasn't on
because
tour.
they're touring. That's crazy. That's
That was what made it click for me, really. I was like, wait a minute. I'm paying to go on tour. That's what you're telling me right now. And it's true. And like
yeah,
I would pay to go on tour, but not that much.
sure. Well, I
I'd
think
pay $100. Touring's fun, but I'm not
yeah,
gonna pay thousands of
not
dollars and like
yeah.
dig myself deeper and deeper into debt for the rest of my life. No, thank you.
Right, exactly. And then like like all of this way to find new means of generating income with music that isn't actually can you listen to this song
Yeah,
is the thing that like both excites me and saddens me because it
yeah,
excites me that we've been adaptable enough to find a way to support artists and stuff like
mhm,
that, right? But we shouldn't have to. Like
yeah. Well, Jeff Bezos has to afford to shoot himself into space every couple of months, so
it's so weird. We
that's
live in
what's
a
really important.
we live in a weird world, man. Like, all right, so like I even say, and this is another thing. Like everybody, I laugh at this, but like every season there becomes something that I get hung up on, and I think for the past season and a half, it's been this like me tiptoeing around how much I hate streaming. And
Uh-huh.
of all, and I don't want to just blanket Spotify, but like Netflix, all of them. I hate them all.
Yeah.
And it is because like we've devalued our music to and our movies and our culture so much that like, do you think you should have access to everything in the world for $10?
$10 a month.
That's
Yeah.
ridiculous. All right. So like as much as I want to like shit on the corporations and stuff like that, I'm like, people, we need to pay more for
Yeah.
what, you know what I mean? Like it's crazy.
Yeah. No, we do. But I am gonna shit on those corporations because
Yes. Well, yes,
they've
absolutely. Yeah.
they've really set up an environment that's pretty hard. It's an ecosystem that's very hard to do anything about. It's like a lot of our economy right now. It's like there are these mega corporations who have the lock on an industry in such a way that kind of Congress will do whatever they want, and also their or their suppliers have to do whatever they want, and also their buyers have to do whatever they want. So Amazon's like that, and so is Spotify. It's like they've cornered the market to such a degree that no one can negotiate with them, including the government, basically.
Yeah.
So, and I just found out, actually, my husband's reading this book called Choke Point Capitalism, which is about this. It's like how tech companies are able to control both sides of the market. They control the buyers and the sellers at the same time. And so I just found out that Spotify, this is really depressing, but basically when Spotify came to America, they negotiated with only the three major labels. And those three major labels are who determined the streaming rates that are now killing all of us and making us go get second jobs. And the way that they negotiated them was in favor of their own artists, basically. So there's all these loopholes within the streaming rates where if you're on a major label, or really if you are the major label, because they also own the back catalog of all these dead artists, they're getting all that money too.
Mm-hmm.
So the streaming rates are better if you're with a major label and worse if you're not, which, as you know, is backwards, because if you're with a major label, that means you have some money behind you anyway. And if you're not, you were actually going to use that couple $1,000s, you know?
But also, if you're with that major label, you're not seeing it. The label's seeing it.
That's
you know what I
absolutely
mean?
true.
Like,
that's absolutely true. Yeah. Yeah, but now we're in this position where it's like it's hard to imagine negotiating our way out of this because like you said, like they've sold everybody the idea that you should be able to have access to all the music ever made for $10 a month, and it's kind of hard to come back from that.
It's impossible. It's like we've absolutely destroyed. And then everybody who's listening is like, all right, here he goes again. But and then also I feel like it has stunted our culture because now like we're all trying to make the same kind of sounding thing to make it onto that master playlist that we get to. And I feel like we've been kind of stunting culture. Like I feel like music is kind of stuck right now.
Completely.
So like that's why, you know, an artist like yourself who like defies that kind of genre or sound excites me. Like that's what I'm looking for. I want something different. I don't want the playlist to sound the same on each song, you know?
Well, thank you. And I feel the same way. What's interesting to me about it is everybody's scrabbling for these playlists. And like, so the Brittany Ann Tranbaugh song, Caroline, just got playlisted today on one of the big Spotify playlists. And we're all excited. Wow, we got on a playlist. Maybe we'll get 500,000 streams. That's $1,500. And 3 people wrote that song. So like the insanity to me that we're out here just like fighting each other for scraps, like it drives me insane. I'm like, so you're saying you're going to make records that sound like fucking Mumford and Sons for the rest of your life in case someone maybe will give you $1,500? Like,
yeah.
What is the price of your soul, my friend? It is too cheap.
It's sad.
So I just really feel like if they want me to sell out, they're going to have to pay better.
Yeah, definitely. I had a joke. I used to run an ad for Spotify podcast back when it was Anchor Podcast, and it was like a sponsored ad. And they took that away when they did that thing with the you need 1,000 streams before they'll start paying you.
Yeah.
They did the same thing on podcasts. Mm-hmm. All right. So like at that point, I decided I'm just not running ads anymore because why am I giving you this? Because the joke, and it sounded like a joke, but it was serious, was I can now afford a large coffee at Starbucks.
Yes.
Okay. Like, because that's what it would make. Like, it's like, cool. I made enough to not enough to sustain this podcast. That's for sure. Like not enough to even pay for any of the subscriptions that I need to run this podcast. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no, I just got an email so the album came out yesterday and I sent out a mailing to all my fans on my mailing list. The album's out, go buy it. And also you can stream it. And somebody replied, oh, I was going to buy it. And then I realized it's on Apple Music. And I couldn't help myself. I wrote her back and I was like, just so you know, you shouldn't tell people that if that's what you're going to do. Like, you can do it. Don't tell me.
Yeah. Don't say the quiet parts out loud.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, talking about being able to purchase it and stuff like that. That's why I'm like a really big Bandcamp guy, and then Bandcamp got sold, and I was like, well,
Yeah,
fuck, I just
I
can't.
know. And they union busted.
Yeah,
Those guys, I know, they were like they seemed like the only good ones, and not even
yeah,
them.
just can't trust anybody. Like it's just
No.
it's a bummer.
I know. I mean, it's kind of happening in every industry. I think it's like we're in a phase of capitalism where like all of the industries that used to have a solid base are now like crumbling because they're built on sand. And so everyone in them is kind of like punching each other in the face, trying to like save their
Take
last
as
dime.
much as they
Yeah.
can. Yeah,
It's like it's a smash and grab. It's like everybody get as much as you can before the whole thing crashes. And I feel like the whole fucking world feels like that right now. Like that's so many of the wars going on feel like that. It's like, well, we need this last little bit of oil because Exxon decided that we have to go support this guy, whatever, so we can get one more year out of this thing before climate change destroys it all. So
right.
it's like, yeah, I think our industry isn't the only one that has that feeling of like late panic. Like, well, it's our last chance to get 25 cents out of this motherfucker.
That's right. It's so true. God, it's so depressing. But
I know.
on the good end, let's focus
Let's
on
bring
the
it
good
back. Bring it back.
Yeah, it's not all doom and gloom. It's not all doom and gloom. You crowdsource your albums, and I was looking at about what 118 grand you raised for this one, which is amazing in its own. But beyond that, what I found even more amazing was like 2,000 and some backers. Like
Oh yeah.
that's incredible. Like I mean, like I don't even know what the question is there. Like I'm in awe. I'm in awe of the support. Like
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's been a really good couple of years in that way. And I think one thing that changed for me, and this isn't in any way advice because I think it'd be useless to anyone but me, but I I I sort of because mostly because of TikTok, really. It was like starting about a year ago, I got on TikTok and I noticed that something that works there is like really going really hard politically. And I go really hard politically in my own actual life, but I had a little bit kept it separate from the music. And I was like, well, hey, here's TikTok. Like, I want some followers, so I'm gonna put my joke songs up there that are like quite far left politically. And I was like, usually I have my joke songs and they're just for me and my friends, but why not put them on TikTok? And those have been by far my most popular videos ever. They're like short songs that are, about politics, basically. And that format happens to work really well on TikTok. So a lot of my new followers are basically just finding me because of these little political ditties that I'm putting on TikTok and social media, which mostly aren't going on my albums. But it's great to have people, because they're like, I'll order your new album because I liked your song Ugly Nasty Call Me Bitch. And I'm like, great, order my album. It's
Yeah.
different, but maybe you'll like it too. Anyway, I've kind of got rewarded for like letting my joke personality merge with my music career.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things I wanted to talk about was because I feel like, and I've been saying this, like nobody listens to me and they shouldn't because who am I? I'm just a guy in a basement with a puppet in the background talking into a microphone. Like
Is the puppet you? Or is
it
the
is.
puppet?
Yeah,
Okay, I
it
thought
is.
so.
Well, but I named him Petey, but
Okay.
I designed it after myself.
Okay, got it. Cool.
But yeah, like oh, now I got puppet sidetracked.
Sorry.
No, it's my fault. It's my fault. Where was I? Hold on. I'll remember it. I'll pull the thread, Nate. Pull the thread. Nobody listens to you because you had a thing to say. Yes. Okay. So one of the things I can always bring it back. It's ADD. You just have to find the spark and then remember and then grab it by the tail and
Right.
fly it to the end. One of the things I've noticed that is incredibly successful right now, and it makes me feel warm inside, is authenticity. All right. And when people actually unlock, when creative people unlock and give them their actual self, I feel like it's being rewarded now.
Yeah.
In a way that I don't remember it being previously. All right. And that isn't to say that we didn't like authentic people, but
Yeah.
I think post pandemic, now that we're kind of having I feel like music's once again like a conversation, even though we're doing it over social media or whatever.
Yeah.
I feel like we're having a more personal connection to things. So it's like, it's less risky to kind of be open if you're having a conversation that way, you know.
Yeah.
You're not trying to fill a stadium, you're trying to talk to somebody else watching you on their phone, right? So
Yeah,
like,
yeah, I think that's true. I also think when there's a new format for music, it tends to have a democratizing effect for a while before it kind of gets sold off to corporate interests. So,
sure.
if TikTok gets sold to whatever American company Congress thinks should buy it, maybe it won't be the same anymore. But like when FM radio first started, that was one of the reasons that like the 60s were such a great time for music because you could suddenly broadcast internationally whatever you wanted based on what you thought sounded cool. Uh, and so like you would have like in the top 10, if you ever look up the Billboard charts from different years, like 1965 is like a incredible year because the top 10 is like the Supremes, Nina Simone, Bob Dylan, like the Kinks. It's like incredibly disparate genres of music who are all great because they just all released a record that people liked in 1965. And then of course like right after that it all got like the record labels got involved and then like Clear Channel got involved and the whole thing is ruined forever. But it's almost like you get this little peek of like what humanity is actually about right before it gets sold off because as soon as it's popular there's somebody with millions of dollars going to buy it.
Right.
So yeah, I think we're in a cool democratizing phase with social media of being able to share music and it can like reach a lot of people without pouring money on it. And I hope it lasts, but it probably won't. But there'll be another thing. There's always another thing.
There's always another thing. And, you know, it was something that somebody said to me about TikTok because I was like, we were having this conversation after this stupid bill about TikTok, like that one social media is a problem. They're invading privacy. Well,
Yeah.
boy, have I got a surprise for you.
Yeah, wait till I tell you. Yeah,
Yeah, you think that's bad. Okay.
I know.
I heard somebody say something about like, well, TikTok, you have to give them permission and they can use your microphone and your camera at any point. And I was like, what the fuck do you think a targeted ad on Facebook is, you dummy? Like, it makes me so angry at just how technologically dumb people are. But whatever.
Yeah. No, I feel the same way. And it's at this point, like I'm so angry at Congress that when they manage to agree on something, it makes me even angrier because it's always the dumbest shit that they come to. So like the TikTok ban, the House is like, sure, pass it, let's go. It's like unanimous.
Yeah.
Like both parties are like, absolutely, China is bad. We don't want them to know anything about stuff. And then, meanwhile, we've been like in the streets for a ceasefire now for what, 6 months? And they're just like, well, it's like you cannot move these people with anything that matters to anyone.
And the thing that blows my mind about that
Yeah.
is, and it's the thing that blows my mind. Same thing with like abortion rights. Same thing with trans rights. Everything is the polling supports the right side, right?
I know.
Like, so it's not even like we're like, nah, fuck it. You're following our dumb lead. No,
No.
you're just not listening.
You're just not doing democracy. If we're so good at this democracy stuff, why is it that single payer healthcare has 75% approval rating? And like that's not even on anyone's platform anymore. Like Medicare for All fell right off the Democratic platform. They're not even interested in discussing it.
So
Makes me truly insane.
So when I got these super cool glasses, that
Yeah.
are actually, now here's where I become the world's biggest hypocrite because
Okay.
these are the Meta Ray-Bans. So Facebook is literally attached
Whoa.
to these glasses. So
Well,
like,
didn't even hear about that. I
yeah,
didn't
they
know
have,
that was a thing.
well, look, they have speakers in them and I can listen to music while I'm in meetings at work. Like this is
Whoa.
the future. They've got a camera in them and I can live stream from them. So like I've been messing around with trying to do live streams while I play shows
Oh my
because
God.
it's like, you get to see
That's
what I see. But anyway,
crazy.
but
I didn't know that was a thing. That's like Google Glass, which I
yeah,
thought kind of like
except for
crashed and burned.
except for I don't look like an asshole. Like,
Right. Nice. That was the big improvement. They're
that was
like,
the
wait.
biggest improvement. Oh God. Yeah. And now that I just sold myself out about that.
Listen,
But
there's no ethical consumption under capitalism, my friend.
it's true. It's very true. But like you were saying about single payer and stuff like that, which is like, all of this. So like I was saying, all of this stuff polls really high, right? And yet somehow we only listen to the polls when they kind of confirm the dumb things that we wanted to confirm, right?
Yeah,
And it's just, I find it's exhausting. Like, I
it is
don't know.
exhausting.
So and the perfect segue here, because you kind of are going on this whole idea of revolutionary optimism. And do you know Mariah Parker?
Yeah.
They so they were on the show, and I
Oh,
asked her
cool.
something
Love
that I'm
her.
going to I asked them something that I'm going to ask you, which is, how do you remain optimistic in all of this? Especially being politically minded, because it's very easy to spiral into everything is fucked.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you brought up Mariah, and I bet I'm going to say something similar to what she says, which is that I became an organizer and I'm part of a community of activists, and that's the main thing that gives me optimism. Because when you're just reading the news and like looking at Facebook and whatever else, talking to regular people, it can feel really demoralizing and exhausting. And the only time I really feel like there's any hope politically is when I'm in a community of organizers because they're committed and they're working and they're good people. And it just gives you a sense of like camaraderie and like joy and community and all that stuff that I think we just need on like a cellular level. So that's actually been the biggest change in my political journey over the past few years is that I got more involved directly in organizing. And if nothing else, it really is good therapy. Like I actually got out of therapy because I started organizing. Had a great therapist, and she was like, "What you need to do is go be an organizer and get involved in volunteering." So I did. I joined a thing called PSL, the Party for Socialism and Liberation, which Mariah is also in. And they have a great Philly branch. They were the leaders of most of the BLM protests in 2020. And being part of that community has just absolutely changed my outlook on the world.
Yeah.
And a lot of the new songs honestly come out of working with those people and like reading the, commie propaganda that they provide me with. Because it is a lot more hopeful because I think that community, unlike mainstream American politics, spends a lot of time talking about what is possible. Like what is really possible if we're looking at climate change? Like what could we do? What could it look like? What would it have to, how would society have to run to actually reverse climate change? And those kind of conversations are like so much more inspiring than like what did Trump just say about his fucking whatever his place in Florida is called and the documents and the charges and the is he gonna make bail or whatever. It's like
Yeah.
that stuff is so depressing. And I find that like if you're just a reader of regular news, you don't get a lot of visions of a better future. In fact, you don't get any. You just get the future's getting worse and worse forever until we die. So I think you have to break out of that scene a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really odd. There was this thing that Chris Rock said in like, I want to say like January 2017. All right.
Okay.
And when he said it, I was like, this is the most brilliant thing in the world and exactly what we need to do. And then
Okay.
we didn't. Okay.
Uh-huh.
And he was like, everybody keeps talking about what Trump's doing. Like, we're like, it's the fourth quarter and we keep getting fouled and we keep pointing to the refs, but the refs aren't calling fouls. And he was
Yeah.
like, at some point you have to realize they're not going to call the foul. Now get back and play defense, you asshole. All right. And like, that's where
Yeah.
I'm like, that's where I'm at. And that's where I thought, there was a good period around the 2020 and around George Floyd and stuff like that, where I was like, here we go. All right. We're starting to make moves. And then we didn't. And like, that's when I lose. That's when I like, I don't want to say I lose hope, but that's when
Yeah.
I just go, God damn it. If we could have just taken that momentum and ran with it. Like,
Yeah. Well, we did in some ways. It's the momentum can't be at the boiling point all the time. It
sure,
has to
sure.
like simmer and then cool off and then simmer. And it's been boiling with Palestine. Like people are in the streets, people are blocking traffic, people are getting arrested, people are losing their jobs. It's engaged tons of especially young people, like people who are just in college or coming out of college, are coming into the movement because of what's happening in Gaza. And the same thing happened with BLM, and the same thing happened with Occupy. And like, yeah, None of them like turned it into a socialist utopia, but they did all create lifelong organizers. And it's really just the trick is just creating more people like that and giving them a stronger community to join and giving them like better projects to be part of. And I think that work continues all the time. Like that hasn't crashed every time the way the movements seem to on the outside, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
there's a movement underneath that's been building and building and building.
I hope. I hope.
I,
I trust you. Like I believe you. You're on the ground and you're seeing it. I also know that part of it is it's just in my nature to complain about everything. So like I do recognize that
well,
as
you
well.
were born in the right time, my friend.
I just wish they would stop giving me so much to complain about.
I know.
But
Yeah.
so the new album is absolutely phenomenal and is out now. And by the time people listen to this will be out for a while. What like obviously you've got this tour that you're about to kick off overseas and then come back over here. First date May 3rd in Philly, which is the day after
Yep.
my birthday. I'm just in case anybody
Happy
wanted to give me
birthday.
a present. But
I'll give you a ticket to the show.
oh well,
Happy birthday.
I won't turn that down. But no, so are there plans for like videos or anything around the album or?
Uh, yes and no. We've made a lot of content, but mostly it's like live performances. I haven't done like a real hardcore music video in a while. Just because it's like stuff moves so fast that
Yeah.
it feels weird to be like, okay, here's the choreography, everybody, a 5, 6, 7, 8, and then it's like maybe a lot of people watch it, but like by next week it's totally off the radar. So I've kind of been like making more stuff just a little bit on the fly. But what are the plans? So I made a whole additional album that's going to come out in a couple months that's called the Red Album that has all those TikTok joke songs on it. And I'm going to make some more TikTok joke videos for that. And actually, I bring it up because we just made a Sesame Street themed one with some puppets.
No
Not
way.
not dissimilar from the guy you have back there, Pete.
That's
Petey,
amazing.
Petey.
I
Yeah.
am I'm a bit of a Muppet freak.
Oh, cool.
But if I'll send you the link later. But I actually did a video one year of PD interviewing me with the questionnaire that I close every
Oh,
episode out with. I
nice.
should actually send that to people when I send them the thing.
Yeah, I
Like
want
this is what
that.
it seems like. But
Cool.
but no, like all the tour stuff is neat and all. But one of the things that's in your future that absolutely blew my mind is you're going on a cruise, right? Next year?
Yeah, we got the Kayamo cruise, the folk cruise. I roll my eyes because I'm just like not a cruise person.
Yeah.
Like, I would never willingly volunteer to go be on a ship stuck in a moving prison with strangers. Like, that sounds like absolute hell to me. But the Kayamo cruise is cool. There's a lot of great musicians on it. They're gonna pay us, so we're gonna do that. Yeah.
Well, it's a weird thing because just going to put this out there. Yeah, if anybody ever catches me on a cruise, something went wrong. Okay,
Yeah.
like I
No,
might
I
be at
know.
gunpoint. It might be at gunpoint. But everybody I know that's ever been on one is like,
Yeah.
you don't understand. By the end of the cruise, it's like, you make all these new friends and da da da. And I'm like, yeah, I got friends. Like,
Yeah, that's how I feel. I don't really need friends. I got a lot of friends.
you don't understand. A lot of people like me.
No, I feel the same way. And it's actually funny because we have like a joke in my band about how like the day that you'll get the gig is the day that you don't want that gig anymore. Because that's
Yeah.
happened to us a lot of times where it's like, oh, I wonder if we'll ever be called up for the blah, blah, blah. And then like the next year you're like, actually it's kind of sucks now. And like, I don't really feel like going all the way to Nevada or whatever. That's when you get the call. So that a little bit happened with Calmo where it was like 10 years ago, that was my big dream to be on on that cruise because it had like Patty Griffin and like Ani DeFranco, like all my sort of formative songwriter heroes. But then by now I was like, I don't really want to be on it. It's a week long. I don't feel like that and whatever. Then they asked me to do it. So yes, of course I'm honored and thrilled.
Yeah, well, and you got cool people on your cruise too. I mean, like
Yes.
friggin' Emmylou Harris and Devin Gilfillian, fellow Philly, guy.
Oh
Like,
yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And Ani DeFranco,
Oh, that's
she's
right.
she's she was a big deal to me when I was coming up as a songwriter, for sure. And she's somebody that I've like wanted to get to hang out with, so I'll be stuck on the boat. I'm sure we'll hang out at least a little bit.
You guys can trade Hadestown stories.
Yes, that's exactly right. Good
There's
point.
your in. Yeah. She was a big influence on me as an acoustic player because like that's the stuff I love of her is just like her just solo with an acoustic is like I could sit and watch for days. Like that was and the sounds and like the percussive nature that she can get up. Yeah. Oh, it's unbelievable. It's so unbelievable.
Yep.
So one of the other things that I wanted to talk about, and here's a weird thing. All right.
Okay.
So you had that touch with the viral nature of rich people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then Oliver Anthony has a different kind of rich viral thing, right?
Yeah.
Do you think it worked out for him? Do you think?
I don't know. I'm worried about him. I haven't checked in on him. It's to me the worrying thing is like you go from being a guy who like plays some gigs around town wherever he's from, like Tennessee or something
like that, yeah,
to being a guy who's like selling out 1,000-cap venues. He doesn't have a manager. He doesn't have a booking agent. He doesn't have a label. I'm sure he had a lot of offers that week, you know, but like, who did he end up with? It could be anybody.
Right. It's wild. Whereas like when
there's
it hit you,
there's a lot of grifters out here.
Yeah, for sure. But like when it hit you, like you'd been around the block, so like you had a career. For someone like him, like it's just like I don't know, man.
It must have been crazy. Yeah, and I went way less viral. I've never gone as viral as he went. He was in the like hundreds of millions.
You didn't get the Joe Rogan invite, territory. I guess.
Not yet. Can't wait. Yeah, so I don't know how Oliver Anthony's doing. Also, just the whole like political firestorm that it caused, where like people were trying to claim him from both political parties, and like he must have gotten so many like hate comments and just warring comment trolls and stuff. Like that must have been.
That was the other thing I was wondering is like, where did he end up? Because like, I know at one point he was like, fuck everybody. And I was like, I respect that. Like, that was pretty awesome. Like,
I'm sure there'll be a Netflix doc like by next week, you know?
Did
you notice how fast they did the GameStop? There's like 2 movies about the GameStop thing. And I'm like, well, that took like 6 months. Where did these come from?
They're now making movies about things that I'm like, I think it's still going on.
Yeah. Like the Mother God cult. I watched that one and like the end of the Mother God cult, they're talking about QAnon stuff and like new QAnon, like recent QAnon stuff. I'm like, wait a minute. When is all this from?
Yes. Yeah. When did you rap? 5 minutes ago? Like,
exactly.
It's wild. We live in a weird world.
Yeah. For sure.
You want to go through this questionnaire? This is my this is what I call the Jawntlet. It starts with the one-hit wonders, one-hit wonder in name only. You like that? It's pretty snazzy.
That's pretty good.
First one, Billy Joel or Elton John? Who do you prefer?
Billy Joel, because he's also the lyricist.
Okay, I like it. Yeah, that's a good answer. Debbie Harry or Joan Jett?
Joan Jett, just on vibes alone.
Dig it. Aretha Franklin or Tina Turner?
Aretha Franklin. I'm a big Aretha person myself.
Okay. Nirvana or Pearl Jam?
Nirvana.
All right.
No concept.
Yeah.
Concept. I don't know.
Janis Joplin or Stevie Nicks?
You know, that's a little tough because when I was young, I was super into Janis Joplin, but it was because I had never heard any actual blues music. And now that I have, I'm going to have to go with Stevie Nicks.
That's awesome. Good answer. The big cliche, the Beatles or the Stones?
Oh, the Beatles. Like, why is that even a question? Okay, the catalog. Look at the catalog.
It's a good point.
But I digress.
I mean, wild horses, though. Okay.
Yeah, but like, okay, you have 10 great songs. Congratulations. Beatles, have like 300. And it was only 8 years long.
10 albums of great songs.
Yes.
Yeah. And then the last one of the one-hit wonders, Bohemian Rhapsody or Stairway to Heaven?
Bohemian Rhapsody for me, all the way.
I can dig it. Actually, you know what? I forgot. Mentally, every once in a while, I like to add one on the fly for the person there. And I will ask you this. Bob Dylan or Phil Oakes?
Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
Phil, kind of similar thing, catalog wise. Dylan just churned out so many songs that have like changed people's brains forever.
Yeah.
And Phil Oakes had some great songs for sure, but
Um, I,
just sheer volume
yeah. I would love if Phil Oakes was still alive because his TikTok would be fucking fire.
would be lit. Yeah, it would.
It would be
I actually
amazing.
just tried to do like an updated rewrite of the song Love Me, I'm a Liberal.
Yes.
I got a couple verses out of it and then I was like, this feels too mean.
Oh yeah. I see. That feels like a TikTok to
Like
me.
just mean enough. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Speaking of reworking things, did you ever hear from Ed Sheeran? Did he ever?
Never did. He never
That's a
hit me
bummer.
up.
That's a
Yeah, but
drag.
now that I'm getting to be a thing in Ireland, maybe it'll come back around.
I was just gonna say maybe you'll get that call. You'll get tapped. The second half of the Jauntlet is the top 10 countdown. Of course, obviously, in this we use Jawn to mean whatever you want it to mean. It can be music. It can be anything you want. It doesn't have to be
Of
music.
course.
Is
Of
essentially what
course.
I'm saying. Number one, what was your first Jawn? What was the first thing you were obsessed with as a kid?
My first John. Dogs.
Yeah. Uh, are you?
Is it supposed to be music or it's like
No, it can
John?
be
It's just anything, right?
yeah, anything you want it to be.
Yeah, I grew up on like kind of a farm in Virginia and we had like 5 to 7 dogs, outdoor dogs, like farm dogs when I was a kid and I would just like roll around with a pack of dogs at all times.
That sounds like heaven.
It was, and I still am like that. If I have dogs around, I'm like, cool, everything's fine, we're good, nothing to worry about.
I love it. I love it. Number two, what's your current John? What are you into right now?
My current John is is Ireland Palestine solidarity swag,
Yeah,
of which there's a lot. For instance, I have a keffiyeh with the colors of the Irish flag, which I love. I also
that's
have like
wild.
a little pin that's the shape of Ireland, but the colors of the Palestinian flag. There's also a lot of pubs now all over Ireland that have Palestine flags on them and stuff where it's like the IRA and the PLO holding hands.
Wow.
So like that's just a weird little thing that I'm like always looking for on the internet, and I'll be in Ireland starting next week and I'll be looking for that in real life too.
That's super cool. That's so cool. I like it was one of those things where like I was like, that doesn't make sense. And then right as you said it and right as the words were about to come out of my mouth, I was like, oh, it 1000% makes sense.
Yeah. Like think of every Irish rebel song is about colonialism and
Yeah.
like fighting the empire. And so they're instantly just like, nope, that's not right. Like nope, that can't be happening.
Yeah.
They're just so quick to
That's
identify
incredible.
colonization. Yeah.
That's wild. Number three, what was your first concert, first live show you saw?
First live show I saw was Nancy Griffith at Wolf Trap in Virginia. And I remember it. I was, I think, 5 or 6.
That's
And
incredible.
yeah, it was great.
That's awesome. Good answer. Good choice. Was that your choice or was that a family choice?
That was my parents' choice.
Yeah, I
They
guess
were
at five. I
big
don't know what I
John
was saying.
Prine, Nancy Griffith were like friends and made a bunch of music together. So everybody that John Prine played with was instantly a hit in my household.
That's cool. That is so
Yeah.
cool. And now that I'm thinking about it, this is like back to back John Prine episodes because I just talked to Eliza from War on Drugs, who's
Oh,
got her
cool.
solo album coming out, and she's also a
Nice.
big John Prine. But
Man,
this,
he's awesome. He's such a special songwriter.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool. Number four, what was the last concert you went to?
What was the last concert I went to? I can't- no. Oh, Emily King. I saw
Oh,
in New York. I believe in January. That was the last concert I was like, I'm going to this concert. I bought
yeah,
tickets and everything. I may have like been adjacent to some live music since then. I can't really remember, but yeah, I went to see Emily King on her new album tour. She's incredible. That was, I think, the third time I've seen her live. Her shows are really special. Her Philly shows are really special. I saw her at the TLA. It's still called the TLA, right?
yeah,
On South Street.
yeah.
Beautiful crowd, and everybody sang along, and it was like one of the most musical crowds I've ever been in. Like harmonies and like beautiful clapping rhythms, and she's a musician's musician. I feel like 80% of that crowd were like working musicians. I went to see her with Chris Casper, actually.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
That's wild. Yeah, like I've never seen her live, but in like just a phenomenal talent.
She is so good. And the hooks on those songs are just like devastating hooks. And that's why it's fun to be in the crowd because everybody sings the choruses together. It's
Yeah.
like it's just like being at a stadium like Billy Joel concert or something.
Yeah.
Hit after hit after hit.
It's the best. What did I just go see? Oh, I just saw Matt Pond at Johnny Brenda's.
Nice.
And like it was one of those ones where like the crowd was definitely like something special where like everybody was like just kind of singing along. Almost like that. Like where like you're just sitting there like, all right, God, I forgot that you can go to these things and people appreciate music,
Yeah,
like because I've
yeah.
been to so many. Have you had any issues live shows post pandemic with people just forgetting how to act in public?
Yeah, I mean, especially early
Yeah.
post-pandemic, we had some weird stuff at shows for sure.
Yeah. Like I feel like people don't remember that like there's a relationship where they're not on the stage at times.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, what are we doing right now? Like, what?
Yeah, shit's weird post-pandemic. There's a lot that's like just a little different. It's like a little like, wait, did you see that? Like,
Yeah.
is this how it used to be? I don't remember this happening.
I'm
Yeah.
still trying to find that person from February of 2020 that I was. But I think that
Yeah.
guy's long gone. And now
That
he's
guy's
the weird guy
gone.
in his basement with a
Yeah.
Muppet. Uh,
Yeah. Amen to that.
Number five, what was your favorite concert
Favorite concert ever in my whole life?
ever?
Oh my God. Ever? Wow. Okay. Here's what comes to mind. There's this guy called Smokey Hormel. He's a guitar player. He used to play with Tom Waits and Beck and stuff. He's like played with all these huge people, but he lives in New York and he plays like Western swing style guitar and like old school jazz guitar. He has this weekly gig in Red Hook in New York called Sonny's Roundup, where he just has some of his friends come and they play like Western swing for a night and they play whatever songs they can think of. And I've been to that a few times, and I think those shows are my favorite shows I've ever been to.
I
They're
dig
just
it.
like really great world class instrumentalists, kind of like shooting the shit and playing whatever they can think of. People always like dance and like get rowdy but not loud. They get like quiet rowdy, like a little drunk and loose, but like everyone's really listening. And the music is just mwah, so good.
That's killer. That sounds like again like my heaven. Like that's just
Yeah.
that's all I ever want.
Yeah, and those tend to be my favorite shows are like little sweaty bar shows.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Number six, who have you never seen live that you wish you would have? They can be living or dead.
Ugh, Prince and Petty. I had chances to see both of them in the year before they died. Prince a couple years before he died. Petty, the last Heartbreakers tour. I was like, my friend Pat in my band was like, "Come up to New York, I can get us all tickets." And I was like, "Oh, I have stuff to do." And like, he was not that old. I thought I would have another chance. So Petty and Prince both missed opportunities. Can't
It's a
believe I'm never
drag.
gonna get to see them.
You just reminded me that I went to see the Black Crowes and Tom Petty at the time. I think it was the Tweeter before it was the BB&T before it was the ever changing venue,
Yeah.
corporate entity. But I went to see, and a buddy of mine got in a fight in the lawn with somebody during the Black Crows.
Wow.
It wasn't his fault. Like the guy
Okay.
was just the guy was just a drunk jerk off, and so we ended up leaving after the Black Crows before Tom Petty played because of that, and we were just like the whole night was ruined. And
Yeah.
I remember going, I'll catch him next time, and then
Ugh,
yeah, so like I was
that's
there, I
devastating.
was there.
You were in the venue.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
to drag.
That's crazy.
Number seven, name an unappreciated, John. Something you wish people paid more attention to.
Um, my favorite living songwriter at this point is a guy called Dan Reeder, who lives in Germany, is a hermit, never ever tours, just puts out super weird albums every few years. Definitely underappreciated John. And I was just thinking of him because when you're talking about your friend getting in a fight in the parking lot, Dan Reeder has a wonderful song called Stay Down Man, which is about being drunk with your friend in a parking lot. He gets into a fist fight with someone, and you're saying to him, "Stay down, man. If you get up again, I'll probably kill you."
It's beautiful.
Anyway, he writes these just really weird, far out songs. You gotta check him out.
I definitely will check him out. That sounds amazing. That sounds amazingly right up my alley too. Like that's
Nice.
the kind of that's what I gravitate towards.
He was the thing that like I discovered in the early lockdown that like I felt like got me through the pandemic. Like if I hadn't found Dan Reeder, I would have just offed myself. I couldn't have made it.
Yeah. Well, thank God for Dan Reeder. Uh,
Yeah.
Number 8, what's your favorite album? Also, I know it's a bullshit question, but
Favorite album? Oh, God. Um, that's just so hard. I'm just gonna give you my favorite album like lately.
okay,
Is that
I'll take
okay?
it. Yeah,
I don't
absolutely.
know if I
There
can do
are
any
no
better
wrong
than that.
answers. There are no wrong.
There is an Oscar Peterson trio record called We Get Requests that has been on my turntable for like probably a year and a half because I listen to it like every other day. And it's just like a cool little jazz trio record where everyone's playing great and it's like really good songs and cool arrangements and I like it.
That's amazing. You did a album of jazz songs. Any thoughts of follow up, something like that?
I love jazz tunes. I love singing jazz, and my band happens to be like really killing jazz musicians. Joe Plowman went to Temple Jazz School for bass, and is a great bass player. My piano player quit jazz school, but also went to jazz school. They're both like recovering jazz musicians. Um, but we love playing jazz together. I don't know if I'll ever put it on an album. It might be just like a thing that I keep to myself because it's fun and I do it every once in a while on a show, you know?
Yeah. Okay.
Making the
That's
album
fair.
was actually super stressful. I was like, maybe it's not for albums. It might just be a me thing.
I can dig that. I can dig that. Number 9, name an artist whose output you'll consume anything they release.
Well, I already said Dan Reeder, which is true. I'm gonna say Devin Sproul, who
Okay.
is a songwriter from Virginia. She co-wrote one of the songs on my new record. She's been a friend of mine for a while, but I felt that way about her before we were friends.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
How did you connect? Like,
So she is from a neighboring town to where I grew up. She's from Charlottesville, Virginia, about an hour from Luray, where I'm from. And I kind of knew about her as a teenager. A boy that I liked gave me a cassette with a mixtape with one of her songs on it. And that was kind of the beginning of me being like, wait, who is this? And then I went to one of her shows at this place called the Gravity Lounge in Charlottesville when I was like 18, probably, right on the cusp of being like, maybe one day I'll try to be a musician. And I saw her do this Valentine's Day show with her husband, Paul Carreri, who's also a wonderful musician. They sang all duets and like were on the stage. They talked and they toured together. And it was like this romantic, beautiful, amazing show. And I like wept through the entire show because it was great. And also because I was having that one of those moments of like, oh no, this is what I have to do with my life.
yeah.
So she's been really instrumental for me becoming a musician, and her way of writing has been really influential in my way of writing.
That's beautiful.
Big fan.
I dig that. The 10th and final of the top 10 countdown. What is your favorite Jawn of all time? Again, can be anything you want it to be.
Cheese.
Cheese? Do you have Do you have a preference or just cheese?
I like
and
all
cheese?
cheeses. All
Yeah.
cheeses any day.
I like it. That's awesome. But as a go-to, and I only have to ask this because of where I live. If you're
Okay.
ordering a cheesesteak, what kind of cheese are you putting on that?
Oh man, I don't like cheesesteaks. I'm
fine.
sorry.
It's all right.
Probably whatever the sharpest is. I'm a sharp, like a sharp Swiss or a white cheddar person.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I dig it. I can dig it a lot. April 4th kicks off the tour through Ireland, and like we said earlier, then you're coming back over here in May. Any surprises on for the tour, or are we just kind of doing the greatness that we do every time?
I am not sure yet. I think probably I'll be in Ireland with my trio, so we'll probably try some stuff out, see what feels good
Yeah.
from the new record, and maybe we'll throw a couple jazz standards in. Who knows?
I dig it. Other than other than the Red album, then are you already kind of thinking another album, or are you going to live with this one for a bit?
I mean, I just made two in a row, so I'm gonna try and like sit on my urge to make more content here for at least a year.
Yeah, I can dig it. If these good folks want to find you on the internet anywhere, what's the best way to track you down?
CarsieBlanton.com. And I'm on all the socials. Instagram's probably the best one.
All right. I dig it. Carsie, thank you so much for doing this. Not just for doing this, but for creating all of the incredible music you do and for the organizing and just everything, the brilliance that you put out into the world. And I do have to add that if you are not one of the cool kids, then I don't know who is. Okay. Because that's a bullshit line.
You're right. I'm gonna change it right now.
That's right. You rewrite
Thank
that. No, I'm just kidding.
Thanks, Nate. Great to meet you.
My thanks again to Carsie for joining me on the show today. Carsie's latest album, After the Revolution, is available now in both physical and digital formats through her website, www.carsieblanton.com, and is streaming on your streaming platform of choice. And Carsie is about to kick off a batch of U.S. dates starting here in Philly on May 3rd, but that show is sold out. Check her website for dates and availability and links to purchase tickets. You can find Carsie on Facebook and Instagram at Carsie Blanton and on TikTok at Carsie Blanton Music. Links to all of those are, of course, as always, in the show notes. If you haven't done so already, please be sure to subscribe to the Yo, That's My Jawn podcast wherever you get your podcast from. And guys, it is never too late to get yourself a super awesome Jawn Scout Merit Badge for Citizenship of the World just by rating and reviewing us. Don't forget to visit www.yothat'smyjawn.com for the link tree with links to articles, merchandise, all of the previous episodes of this podcast, guest appearance on other podcasts, and more. And while you're there, be sure to sign up on our mailing list to get all of the updates delivered straight into your inbox. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/YoThat'sMyJawn for updates and live streams. Follow us on Instagram, Threads, and Twitter X at Yo That's My Jawn, and search Yo That's My Jawn on YouTube to find the Yo That's My Jawn YouTube channel. Like and subscribe the heck out of that ish. We want to hear from you. Reach out, and touch some Jawn. All right, folks, that's all I got for you now. I hope you enjoyed our time together as much as I did. Blue skies. Until next time, everybody. Yo, That's My Jawn is a Lonely Monk production. Written and produced by yours truly, Nate Runkle. Theme song by me, under the moniker Nate 3.0. Special thanks to Fox Run Brands, DX Ferris, Andrew Scott, Maggie Poulos, Dan Drago, Natalie Runkle, and the beautifully vibrant and wickedly stunning Katie Daubney. If you or anyone you know has any ideas they would like to share or any guests they would like to hear on the podcast, please feel free to reach out to us at yothat'smyjawn@gmail.com or hit us up on the socials at yothat'smyjawn. Until next time, be sure to displace the guilt and embrace the pleasure. Tilt your head back and shout to the world, Yo, that's my Jawn.